Welcome to today's Explainer, Polar Bears, the Prince of the Arctic. We're heading straight to the frozen top of the world today to look at one of the absolute most awe-inspiring apex predators out there. Seriously, these creatures are evolutionary marvels, surviving and thriving in some of the most brutal conditions Mother Nature can throw at them. By the end of our time together, I promise you're going to see these iconic animals in a completely new light. Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We're going to hit 6 main points. 1. Meet the Arctic Prince. 2. Masters of the sea ice. 3. The apex predator. 4. Reproduction and life cycle. 5. A species at risk. And finally, 6. Polar bear FAQs. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Meet the Arctic Prince, the physical marvels of Ursus maritimus. Okay, just take a second to really look at this animal. The polar bear is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the Arctic. I mean, we are talking about the largest land carnivore on Earth. An adult male can weigh anywhere from 900 to an absolutely staggering 1,600 pounds. And if they stand up on their hind legs, you're looking at an animal that's up to 10 feet tall. They look like these massive, fluffy, bright white snow bears, right? Well, what if I told you that their famous white coat is actually a total optical illusion? This is one of my favorite facts. There is a huge difference between what our eyes are seeing and the actual biology. A polar bear's fur isn't actually white at all. It's completely pigment-free. The hairs are hollow and translucent. Basically, they just scatter and reflect visible light, which gives off that bright white appearance. It's the ultimate camouflage for living out on the ice. But here's the real kicker. Underneath all that see-through fur, a polar bear's skin is pitch black. That black skin acts like a solar panel, soaking up and absorbing every single ounce of the sun's precious heat. You combine that with a layer of blubber that's up to 4.5 inches thick, and you've got a creature literally engineered for sub-zero survival. Moving right along to Section 2, Masters of the Sea Ice, perfectly adapted to the harshest environment. Now, when you think of bears, you probably think of the woods, right? Land animals. But polar bears are totally unique. They're actually the only bear species on the planet that are legally and scientifically classified as marine mammals. That puts them in the exact same overarching category as whales, dolphins, and seals. Why? Because they spend the vast majority of their lives out on the frozen ocean. They rely entirely on the sea ice to hunt, to travel, and to breed. For a polar bear, the sea ice isn't just a place they visit, it's the very foundation of their entire existence. Which brings us to Section 3. The apex predator, survival in a frozen wasteland. Knowing how massive they obviously need a ton of calories, up to 20,000 a day. But the numbers behind their hunting are just wild. A staggering 95% of a polar bear's hunts are completely unsuccessful. Think about that for a second. They only succeed about 5% of the time. That means for every single seal they actually manage to catch, they've suffered through dozens of failed attempts. They have to work incredibly hard and burn up precious energy for every single meal. To actually beat those terrible odds, they use a super specialized tactic called still hunting. First off, they use their nose. Their olfactory system is practically a superpower. A polar bear can smell a seal's breathing hole from nearly a mile away, even when that hole is buried under 3 feet of solid ice. Once they find it, step 2 is all about extreme patience. The bear will sit completely motionless next to the breathing hole, sometimes for hours or even days, just waiting in the freezing wind. Then, step 3. The very second a ringed or bearded seal comes up to take a breath, the bear strikes. It's lightning fast and incredibly powerful. It's a brutal cycle, sure, but it is absolutely necessary for them to survive. Let's look at Section 4, Reproduction and Life Cycle, Generations on the Ice. The difference in scale here is just mind-boggling. Remember how we said a massive adult male can weigh up to 1,600 pounds? Well, compare that to a newborn cub. When a female gives birth inside her snowdrift den in the dead of winter, her cubs weigh a mere 1.5 pounds. They're blind, toothless, and basically the size of a guinea pig. It's crazy. These tiny, fragile cubs will stay glued to their mother's side for up to 2.5 years. During that time, she's fiercely protecting them and teaching them the really complex hunting and survival skills they're going to need to navigate the sea ice on their own. Section 5. A species at risk. The precarious future of the Arctic. While the polar bear is definitely the ultimate icon of the Arctic, it's also officially listed as a vulnerable species on the IUCN Red List. This means they are facing a seriously high risk of extinction in the wild if their circumstances don't improve. So, Let's look at the numbers and the threats. Currently, researchers estimate there are only about 22,000 to 31,000 polar bears left in the world right now, spread across 19 recognized subpopulations. The number one, absolute biggest threat to their survival is the loss of their sea ice habitat, which is driven by a warming climate. Like we talked about earlier, they depend entirely on that ice to hunt seals. When the sea ice seasons get shorter, they have less time to hunt and are forced to spend way more time fasting on land. This inevitably creates a tragic domino effect: malnutrition, longer, more dangerous swims to find ice, and much lower survival rates for those tiny cubs. Throw in secondary threats like chemical pollution building up in the Arctic food web and disruptions from oil exploration, and you can see exactly why they're so vulnerable. All right, let's wrap things up with Section 6, Polar Bear FAQs, your top questions answered. Let's do a rapid-fire round. Question number 1. Do polar bears live in Antarctica? We've all seen the cartoons with the polar bears and penguins hanging out on the same iceberg, right? Well, the answer is a big, definitive no. Polar bears are strictly Arctic animals. You will only find them in the Northern Hemisphere across 5 nations: Canada, Russia, the US up in Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. Antarctica is way, way down in the Southern Hemisphere. So despite what pop culture tells us, a wild polar bear has literally never met a penguin. Moving on to FAQ number 2. Do polar bears have any natural predators? I mean, who hunts the hunter? The answer is absolutely no one. Polar bears are true, unrivaled apex predators, 0 natural predators in the wild. The only real threat to their survival comes from human activity, whether that's historical overhunting, modern pollution, or climate shifts altering their habitat. Next up, FAQ number 3. How long can a polar bear live? This is actually super impressive when you factor in the freezing weather, constant migration, and the threat of starvation. In the wild, polar bears can live for 25 to 30 years. And in captivity, where they don't have to stress about hunting or the harsh climate, they've been known to make it all the way to 40 years old. And our final FAQ: how fast can they swim and run? Just how athletic are these massive bears? The answer is terrifyingly athletic. Their paws can be up to 12 inches wide and are totally webbed, so they act like giant built-in paddles. That lets them cruise through the water at speeds of 6 miles per hour. And they are serious long-distance swimmers, too. Researchers have actually tracked them swimming continuously for over 60 miles straight from shore. Plus, they can hold their breath underwater for a full 2 minutes. And if you're thinking you could just outrun one on land, no way. Despite their massive size, they can sprint across the ice at speeds up to 25 miles per hour for short bursts. So as we finish up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to chew on. We've seen just how perfectly engineered these animals are for the extreme cold, from their heat-absorbing skin to their wild hunting patience. But they are also incredibly vulnerable because their whole existence depends on the ocean freezing over. So the question we all have to ask ourselves is this: as their icy kingdom continues to melt, what actions are we going to take, both individually and globally, to make sure the Prince of the Arctic doesn't just fade into a legend of the past? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.